In this video, we'll just be introducing you briefly to the pattern making tools that you'll be using and learning how to use. I'll give you a very quick demonstration of a couple of them, but for most of them, you'll see them in action in more detail in the other videos and the introductions to the pattern making. So, starting with our measuring tools, we have obviously, you'll be familiar with our soft tape measure. So this we can use for measuring around the body, for measuring around curves on patterns. This is an essential part of any pattern maker and sewer's toolkit. For pattern making, you have your grading ruler. The ones that we use here in Australia have centimetres on them and they're gridded in 2mm lines. So for example, when we're ruling our seam allowances on, that is 12mm, we won't be measuring 12mm from here to here and around. So using the 12mm line along here to rule a parallel line. Over here we have our French curve. It has a short section of grading ruler, the same as this one over here, and we have a tight curve around here and a longer, flatter curve on this section. So this ruler is fantastic for using creating gentle curves, smooth lines on side seams, on hems, and then some of these tighter curves, you might use them on a neckline or an armhole. Here we have a right angle ruler. This style of right angle ruler doesn't have a grid, it's only got the centimetres marked on the side. It also has a curve here again that you can use on some of those hems or those longer gentle curving lines in your pattern making. Moving over to scissors, in this subject you will be needing 2 pairs of scissors. So you have your cheaper pair of paper and card cutting pattern making scissors, and here you have your more expensive, sharper scissors that you keep exclusively for fabric. If you start using these scissors on paper and card, you'll blunt them very quickly, and that can create problems when you're cutting delicate fabrics like chiffon or silk organzas. For our pattern making, we have an awl, a notcher, and a tracing wheel. So this awl is for punching through the paper and the card to create a hole, and this you will use to mark your drill holes in the pattern. It also goes through fabric if you're needing to mark the drill hole in the fabric before you sew it. So for example, on the end of a dart. Here we have pattern notches. These notches are cutting into either the paper or the card. You never use these ones on your fabric. So when you've finished the edge of your pattern and you would like to mark the seam allowance, you will place your notcher on the edge like that, and it takes out a little bite of the card. When you're using your notcher on your paper patterns, you find that it often doesn't cut through the paper very easily, and you might want to place a piece of card underneath the paper so that you get a nice smooth notch like that. You also will be using your tracing wheel. This is an essential part of your kit. So if you need to transfer your shape either through fabric or paper to something underneath, you apply pressure and then along here you can see the dotted line coming through to the other side. Now your staple is fantastic for anchoring paper patterns to card before you cut them out, or you might use it in your pattern making to hold bits of the paper together. So just as an example, if I was going to cut out this paper from here, rather than gluing it or holding it down, I could staple the edge to hold the paper, cut it out along here, and then I've got that cardboard now following my paper pattern perfectly, and here you can use your stiletto or a staple remover to pop those staples out and that will save you lots of time and improve the accuracy of transferring your patterns, from paper to card. Once you've got your pattern completed, you'll be punching holes in it and then hanging it up with your pattern hook. So the holes, this anchors your holes together, so it holds all of the pattern pieces together, and then the hook is how you will store your patterns hanging up. If you're at UTS, you'll be able to use one of these hole punches. Makes a perfect little hole here that you can put your pattern hook through. They're very expensive to buy. Most people don't have one at home, particularly when they're a student or even if they're just starting out. This tool is a 2-in-1. It has a notcher up the top here and a little hole cutter on the bottom. So it's a great option for if you want to cut your neat circles out with a hole punch, but you don't want to buy one of these guys. For when you're drafting or transferring your patterns, you'll be using a weight. Again, this is a very big one that we have here at UTS. They come in smaller sizes. You can also be creative about what you have at home and what you can use as a weight, just to hold the paper down, or sometimes you'll use it to hold fabric down when you're transferring it around and tracing so that it doesn't move. Masking tape will be your best friend in pattern making. We use masking tape and not plastic sticky tape so that you can actually add it, remove it, and you can draw on it. So it's much more functional for pattern making than other types of tape. So if I have this here, I can add to my patterns, I can draw on it, and then if I need to change my mind or fix it again, I can remove it without destroying anything. So this is a fantastic and essential part of your toolkit. It's also fantastic for using when you're draping on the mannequin. You can use it to hold sections of the pattern or the garment together if you need to add volume. So I recommend this as an essential part of your toolkit. When you have finished all of your pattern, you've confirmed your grain lines, your notching and your labeling, you'll be using these pens. Doesn't have to be this brand, but you'll be using these colors to label your patterns. So here we have red for fusing, black for the main or the main fabric that you're using in your garment, green you use for lining only, and blue if you have a second color or fabric in your garment. This will be called your contrast fabric. When you're doing all of your pattern making, I recommend using a pencil so that you can rub it out, you can make mistakes, you can fix it, you can change it. Now the best way to use is the product to use is a mechanical pencil, because you can get a very fine and a delicate line here. If you're using pencil, you just need to make sure you have a sharpener and you keep the tip of your pencil nice and sharp through the process.